a black nurse was treated better by enemies than her own country. Kesha Williams sat against a cold metal wall, her body sore and her heart heavy. Around her were 28 other black women, silent, scared, and expecting the worst. It was late November 1944, and they were prisoners of war being shipped to San Francisco. They had been told that being captured by white soldiers meant pain, shame, and death. Kesha had once worked as a nurse at a segregated military hospital. She treated wounded black soldiers, men fighting for a country that barely saw them as citizens. When her unit was sent to the Pacific, they were told, "Death before capture." Soldiers were killing themselves to avoid falling into enemy hands. Kesha had tried to do the same after being injured by a bomb. But she passed out before she could finish the job. When she woke up, a white soldier carried her to safety. No one harmed her. They cleaned her wounds, offered her food, and spoke kindly. Still, Kesha believed this kindness was fake, just a cruel trick before the real torture began. Now, 5 months later, the ship was docking in San Francisco. Surely, she thought, the real mistreatment would start now. But when the ship doors opened, the soldiers didn't carry weapons. They brought thick, warm blankets. A female officer placed one over Kesha's shoulders and said something kind. Kesha froze, confused. What kind of mind game was this? They were let off in groups. As they passed through the busy city streets, Kesha stared out the bus window. Everything looked clean, rich, normal. She couldn't believe this was enemy territory. They were taken to Angel Island, where the U.S. military had built a camp for female prisoners of war. There were no torture rooms, only clean housing, medical beds, food, and American nurses who treated them like human beings. One nurse, Mary Chen, helped translate questions from the doctors. When Kesha said, "It hurts when I sit," the American doctor showed concern, not cruelty. She explained that weeks of sitting on hard floors and poor nutrition could cause injury. She gave Kesha a cushion to sit on. For the first time in many months, Kesha felt comfort. She waited for the real abuse to begin, but it never came. They were given warm beds and pillows, their own bunks, hot water for showers, enough food to eat every day. At first, no one trusted it. Some women even refused food, thinking it was poisoned, but hunger beat fear. Nobody got sick. When Kesha was assigned to the medical unit because of her experience as a nurse, she expected limits or insults. Instead, she was treated like a part of the team. White Americans, her so-called enemy, asked her medical opinion, looked her in the eye, and worked beside her. She was also paid a few cents a day, but enough to buy soap, pencils, or small treats from the camp store. Even stranger, there were English classes, volunteering opportunities, and even music and books in a small library. Soldiers and prisoners shared stories, hobbies, even laughs. One day during an origami class, Kesha realized what was truly happening. These people weren't monsters. They treated her better as a prisoner than she had ever been treated in her own country as a Black American nurse. Her memories of separate bathrooms, secondhand tools, and being dismissed at home never left her. But here, in a POW camp, she was respected. That truth shook her. How could an enemy treat her better than her own government? So she began documenting everything. Kesha took notes on meals, treatments, guard behavior, conversations, and daily routines. With help from Mary, she translated military rules about keeping prisoners safe. She even gathered written statements from American guards confirming everything. Her stack of evidence grew daily. When World War II ended in 1945, she made a bold move. She held a press conference at the camp. "My name is Kesha Williams, prisoner number 4782, she told the stunned reporters. "And I was treated better here, as a captured enemy, than I ever was as a Black nurse in America." She said it aloud. America failed its own citizens, but somehow it had found ways to treat its enemies with respect. Even Sergeant Patricia Morrison, one of the guards, stepped forward to confirm Kesha's claims. "If we can treat enemy prisoners like this," Morrison asked, "why don't we treat our own Black citizens the same way?" The press exploded. Headlines across the country told Kesha's story. Photos, documents, and testimonies made it impossible to deny. 2 years later, President Truman signed Executive Order 9981, ending segregation in the U.S. military. He quoted parts of Kesha's speech in his address to the nation. Years later, Kesha became a military advisor and human rights leader. Her story helped inspire change on 2 continents. In a speech near the end of her life, she said, "The real enemy isn't race or flag, it's injustice. And sometimes the best way to win is to simply tell the truth."